So for this Sandbox episode, we're excited to talk to somebody who is putting out some serious effort into the world and doing a ton of stuff. We're talking to artist, founder, and CEO of Industry Print Shop in Austin, Texas, Mr. Tony Diaz. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Tony to the show.
Tony.
What's up,
dude? Thank you for having me.
I like how you said just putting stuff out in the world.
He's just putting stuff out into the world. I mean, this, like, as we were...
That is stuff.
As we're sitting here, like, chatting with you about, making sure we get all the introduction stuff right, and we're talking through the logistics of the show, like, you're rattling off all this stuff that you're doing, and I'm just like, holy crap, this guy is just churning it out. And I'm excited to talk to you. I'm excited for our listeners to be able to hear about what you're doing and what's going on with you. But before we get to all of that stuff, why don't you give everybody a quick Wikipedia page about who Tony is? Just take us through a little journey of who you are and what you do.
Cool. Yeah. I would say that like a playground hustler, like hustling candy on the playground, making that extra, like turning a quarter into 50 cents. That kid turned into a punk rock kid playing in bands. That kid turned into a designer and screen printer. And then a businessman and father. So pretty much that's the quick rundown of who I am, where I came from.
So you mentioned like bands and punk rock, and like I get that feel from like Industry has a little bit of that flair. But how did it go from being in bands to being a screen printer? Like how did you get to screen printing?
I wasn't the band that I was in. I moved to Austin from San Antonio, and the band that I was developing with the band, there's a lot of there's multiple people.
Sure.
And what I found was the not everybody was putting in the same amount of effort, and if not everybody's fully into it, then you're not going to really progress.
Right.
So it was me and my buddy that were really into it, and the two other guys were just kind of like, oh, this is cool, whatever. And so I could tell it wasn't going to go really far where I wanted it to go. So I found a way to make myself, I guess, I got myself into the scene, I was kind of new to Austin. Mm-hmm. So I just threw myself out there, and was like, where can I fit in to be able to contribute to the scene? While that was happening, I kind of took the limited design knowledge that I had, in making t-shirts for my band, flyers and stuff for my band, and started just kind of like honing that in. And I developed a clothing line, like a lifestyle brand for punk rock kids. It locally was caught on.
Yeah.
I swagged out some of the bigger bands here in Austin, and I set up at the shows, sell my shirts. The band's wearing the shirt on stage, and then they're like, "Oh, I want that shirt." All the kids are like, "I want that shirt." So what that turned into was me being the merch guy. Like immediately, I was like, "Oh, you're here at the behind. Can you sell our merch too?" So I was just the merch guy for almost everybody. Touring bands would come in, and I get real buddy with them. After about a year or so of doing that, some of these bands that I became really good friends with started to hit big. They're getting signed to majors. This is early 2000s.
Yeah.
So this is Island Def Jam, signed on a lot of really awesome pop punk and punk bands and things like that. And some of those guys were my really good friends. They brought me out on tour, and that eventually led to me actually playing in a band. So friends of mine recorded a new record. They recorded a new record. They were a 4-piece. They lost their guitar player right before the recording session. They recorded it as a 3-piece. but with a second guitar player.
Right. Yeah.
With a second guitar in studio.
Right.
So I was basically like the second guitar player for live.
Right.
At that point, I was like, man, I'm living my dream. This is what I really wanted to do forever. And in between all of that, I developed my line. I was designing for other bands. And while I was home, I got, just kind of like this part-time gig at this screen printing shop, and kind of learned the ropes. Really, really fell in love with that. But all the while I was already in love with music. Mm-hmm. Once I hit that pinnacle point of like, man, I'm finally doing what I've always been wanting to do, I was over it. Like I had this moment and I was like, yo, you're living your dream. This is amazing. You've been at this for 10 years. And the next day I was done.
Yeah.
I was so over it.
Yeah.
I was ready. I was, like I said, I was so I fell in love with screen printing, that I knew that that's what I was going to jump into. I was ready to really be able to do that. I wasn't be able to do that on the road.
Right.
And so I just went right into it. I went full time with that screen printing shop. Some things had changed, and I eventually, like almost immediately coming back from tour, I was hired on as the general manager. It's a smaller shop, but I have been doing it for a few years at that shop. I was on tour for about 4 years. So I came back, worked at that shop. The owner and I didn't really see the new owner and I didn't really see eye to eye on a lot of things. And so I branched off and formed industry.
Wow. And that was like a decade ago now.
It's 2007.
Yeah, man.
Wow. That's it.
Long story, but that's how we got there.
Maybe not to that level. Like I wasn't, I haven't been standing on stage. I've stood on a stage. Yours was probably better.
He has once been on a stage.
But the idea of like getting the thing that you've been going for, and then the second you hit it, but this other, I've had a similar moment. Like I've had a similar like pivot point in my life, which ended up kind of putting me in the place where I'm now. So I can relate with that on some level. So moving into industry, so you had a few years of experience, and but what is that like to take on that challenge on your own? Right. So you say you didn't see eye to eye, and that's what led to you branching off. But certainly, I imagine with any endeavor, it's more work than you expect, or there's things that you don't anticipate. So what has that journey been like over this past decade? Just kind of, or I should say, what was that journey like moving into it?
Well, before. I consider the band that I was in a business. The clothing line that I had was obviously a business. Within the clothing line, I had a record label. In somewhere between in all of that, when I was working at this screen printing shop, in between being on tour, I opened up an embroidery shop.
Naturally.
And so, like,
I mean, that's obviously that's point A to point B in my mind. That just obviously connects.
Yeah. And so I think the takeaway from that is I failed in a lot of businesses. Failed in like 4 or 5 businesses before I started industry.
Sure.
So, but I don't look at them as failures. I look at them as that was my college.
Sure.
That's where I learned real world. I didn't go to college. So I used all that opportunity as like this learning how to do this.
Yeah.
And honestly, I still don't really know, I don't have a business degree. I just like recently learned how to read a balance sheet and a P&L statement and everything like that, but have been kind of forced to do that as of recently. We have like around 30 employees.
Right. Yeah.
This is something that we say every year.
Oh wow, you have 30 employees. That's
yes.
that's not a small number. I mean,
full time.
And in fact, like I think like anytime you cross, I think the threshold is like 25. Like that's considered like a really important number to like move up into like that size, because you're out of the idea of being a startup because you're 10 years old, and you're not really a small business. I mean, it's not 500, but 30 is sizable. That's impressive.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, no, we fell into a different tax bracket after the 25. Yeah, for sure. But you know, I took all those experiences, matched them up with my ambitions, and you know, I was saying this earlier. I say this every year. Every year is our biggest year. Like, we show nothing but steady growth. We haven't plateaued. Over the 10 years, we've never made less or equal to the year before.
Yeah.
We've always sold a lot more than the previous year.
Yeah.
And so that in itself is kind of a challenge to be able to manage, because I know how to manage. I know how to manage 1 million. I know how to manage 2 million, 3 million. You know, it's like it grows every year.
Sure.
So it's you know, it's like always running to keep up. And so, I mean, I don't know if that we kind of trailed off, but that's, I mean, it's a.
Well, let me ask this then, because you made the statement that you've done several businesses, and you know, you've had your share of failure, and now you're having your share of success, and certainly things are there are certainly still challenges that you face. For someone right now that, no matter what the business is, they say, like, I want to go out and do my own thing. Like, I feel like I'm ready to make that jump. I'm ready to take that step. Then, do you have like just a piece of advice to offer that person, or is it just generally just kind of like go for it, get beat up, and learn from it, and keep going?
The one thing that, you know, we have some mottos that go along within our branding. One's blood, sweat, mostly tears.
Yeah.
The other is can't stop, won't stop.
Yeah.
And I mean, I you know, those are mantras. Those are daily mantras for me. I feel that it takes that. However, you know, I'm famous for like pulling like a 36-hour workday where I you know, I just didn't sleep. I would go to work. I wouldn't even go home. I'd stay till like 6 a.m. the next day, go home, pick up the kids for school, drop them off, come back to work, get home like at 8 o'clock that night, and then go to sleep. I mean, I've had plenty of these really long work days, and it sounds grueling, and it's a mean hustle, but at the same time, it's not, because I love what I do.
Right.
I have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Doing it. I'm extremely fulfilled. You know, I would say that has over in the last year, I haven't really had to do that.
Yeah.
Where in the past it was kind of a necessity. But once I hired, you know, 25, 26 people, I'm like, yo, you guys can do some of this now.
Yeah. So go ahead. Oh, no, that's fine. Finish your thought.
You know, I love my kids and I'm super present for them, you know, but I have a blast doing what I do. So it's not as hard to do it.
Yeah.
You know, it's fun.
Sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've mentioned that it was it's fun work. You guys have had seemingly, at least we only have met you guys in the last couple months, but we've heard your name for a while, and you guys have a lot of fun in person, and you're doing a lot of really cool stuff. So maybe talk about just last year, kind of what it brought, and then maybe take us into what this year looks like.
Last year, the year before, so 2016.
Yeah.
Was really when people, the story of how industry came to be, my story, the starting of it, the growth of it was starting to catch on, and people were wanting to hear it and for me to share it.
Yeah.
So I was doing a little bit of that in 16. And then in 17, I did my first talk at Crop, like first proper kind of presentation at Crop last year. And that right there just started to kind of open the doors for some other things that came up throughout the year.
Yeah.
But 2017 was a really big year for us. It was our 10-year anniversary. We celebrated by just putting out a whole bunch of like commemorative goods. We collaborated with a lot of with some brands, with some designers. Made some really rad stuff with Morning Breath. We had Morning Breath come down to Austin after Crop, just because they were already in the South. We helped facilitate a mural they painted. We featured them in our Print Addiction party series, which is it's a screen printing party. We set up our manual t-shirt press with a bunch of different designs, and you can mix and match. Like, oh, I want number 1 first, and then I want design 6 on top of that one.
That's cool.
And so we had them come down for that. We produced this 21 color screen print with them. I feel like working with Morning Breath was one of the crowning moments of our anniversary. We sponsored at Weapons of Mass, which was rad. We co-produced Pop-Up Crop. We released, there's a brewery here in Austin called Austin Beer Works.
Yeah.
And released a special 10-year anniversary beer with Austin Beer Works.
Nice.
Is Blood Orange Goza. So our motto is blood, sweat, mostly tears.
Right.
It was blood orange for the blood. And a Goza is kind of salty, so kind of represented the sweat and the tears.
Nice.
Love it.
That was to kind of like create our own beer, and have it canned and see that entire process. And the can is completely ours. That was super cool.
Yeah.
We did this really rad project with Volcom, which is opening up some doors for 2018.
Yeah.
And is that called, because I'm looking on your Instagram right now. We talked about the Volcom before, and I see like the cut from the same cloth. Is that like the name of the series? Is that what that is, or?
That was the name of the art show.
Of the art show
of the art show that we had with Volcom.
Gotcha.
That was a very, that title for that show, it was approached with very focused intention with that title, because I feel that with Volcom and industry that we are cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
Our ideals and values and things like that are completely aligned. So there was a huge amount of intention with that title.
Gotcha. And so these are the jeans that you wore for a month, correct?
Yeah. So I approached Volcom. They have a flagship gallery retail spot here in Austin, and we're really good friends with the curator of the gallery, Michael Sieben, and the global creative director, Mike Aho. And we kind of called a meeting. They called me into the gallery, and they said, "Hey, like we need to continue to work more. We had already been contributing and helping them out. We're screen printing, whatever, doing a bunch of things for them. But they were like, we really want you guys to be more involved with this space. So like, just consider this venue of your venue." So that's when I pitched him this idea that I've had for a really long time, where we create a body of work in the same pair of jeans, and we at the end of the 30 days, we have the show. We show the work, but the show is really the jeans. The jeans are suspended from the ceiling. They're hanging like a few feet in front of the artwork. All the lighting is on the jeans. We made like a little installation of like ink buckets and paper scraps and just a bunch of stuff like under the jeans. And it was just to kind of like, we were trying to like capture the moment of like when you're in the studio making work, and what does that environment look like?
Sure.
The jeans are like extremely like all inked out, super crusty from 30 days of just
how
straight
bad do
wearing
they
them.
smell?
And it was just and we had that, like I said, we in November was a really busy time. We had pop-up crop. All this happened in the same weekend. We had pop-up crop. The next day was MondoCon, and that Saturday night of MondoCon was our art show at Volcom.
Wow. Wow.
And then we had we do live printing. We had a team in Houston live printing for Niantic. That weekend was nuts.
Yeah, that's
But anyway,
crazy.
we had this show, and it really a lot of people at Volcom corporate kind of was like, "Yo, this is rad."
Yeah.
Which is what you want, right? I mean, that's not a bad gig.
The big thing for me is to be able to provide value as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
We gave them content that they never expected to get, without any kind of in-house direction from them. Like, oh, they have really rad marketing campaigns. They're smart dudes. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But this kind of approach had never been. They never even really thought of it. So we just kind of was like, here you go. What about this? And that really opened the door for us to work more with Volcom. And now we're in talks with producing a super limited, altered by industry Volcom line.
Yeah,
Nice.
That's awesome.
So I'm looking forward to visiting the Volcom folks in Costa Mesa and really just taking the bull by the horns with that project, especially.
Yeah.
Just cutting loose on it.
Yeah, I grew up like wearing Volcom, like being like a huge like proponent for the brand. And like if I was to tell 16-year-old Tony that this was going to happen, 20 years later, I would have not believed it.
Right.
But here we are, and I'm just so stoked about it.
So let me ask you this, because we've mentioned how busy you are, how much stuff you have your hands in, and you also mentioned earlier that you kind of hit this peak point or this like dream moment, and then you're ready to move on. Some people would look at that and say, oh, he's a serial entrepreneur. Like, he's just going to constantly wants to start. He just always wants to be making something new. Some people might look at you and just say, oh, he just gets bored really easily. Which would you, where do you feel like you would fall in the spectrum between always having to create something versus never being fully fulfilled in the thing you're doing, and so you're seeking out the next thing that might be more fulfilling?
I mean, I would say I lean towards the first one, the serial entrepreneur. The focus for my brief talk at Pop-Up Crop was basically how when I started industry, how I didn't have the intentions of having 30 employees.
Yeah.
didn't have the intention of being as big as we are now. But it just happened. I don't want to say that it fell in our lap. We worked for it, but it's not. I started the shop not wanting to be a big shop,
right?
And I think that I just like I have big ambitions. That was like one of the things that divided me away from that other print shop. And I mean, I'm super hungry. So now going back to like what I was talking about at Pop-Up Crop was just how now I have intentions. Now I know what I want industry to be in the next 5 to 10 years. And I think over the past couple of years, we've proven that we're not just a screen print shop. Like, we're content generators. Like, we can do so much more than just screen print. And so that's where we're growing into. And I want it to be, I want it to just be industry.
Right.
It's industry print shop, but I want it to be so much more than that. I know we already are. Mm-hmm. And that instead of like, oh, now I want to be a restaurateur, or now I want to like open up this other thing. I'm not really focused on that. I'm just more focused on my intentions of growing industry, much further than just a print shop.
Well, bringing value. It's a thing you said before, like you desire to always bring more value. And whether it sounds like under the umbrella of industry, but whether that's in printing or outside of printing, you just want to be bringing the most value to this community that you serve. And it sounds like something that fits great in that is work that matters. I mean, that sounds kind of like, for looking towards 2018, something that's right in line with that. So take a minute and talk about this new series that you're putting together.
Yeah, awesome. We in 2016, when I like I said, like I was doing workshops, doing like small talks for class, like design classes and things like that.
Yeah.
Somebody was at something that I was speaking at, and I got a call from this marketing agency, and they're like, "Hey, we're putting together this these commercials for Verizon that are they focus like, it's just like to highlight like small businesses that are that have a cool story and they do rad stuff." And so I think there was like a pool of 30. And after my initial interview for that campaign, like they were like, the very next day, they're like, you're automatically in. Like, they're, everybody's super stoked on you. So in that commercial, I'm kind of talking about, I get to work with all my friends, my wife. There's this line I say, that I say, why stop? Because we're having fun and we make work that matters. Mm. And one of my employees, like immediately looked at me and he was like, whoa, that was a very profound statement, because he was like, I thought you were going to say we're having fun and we're making money. And it's like, no, like he was like, oh, it kind of made like I felt like a mental shift right there, where he was like, man, we're making work that matters. Like, that, what we do matters. Who we work for, it's not just like, t-shirts for the turkey trot, or for the family reunion, or for just the whatever. It's like we're making screen printing work that people have put in a lot of time and effort to get produced. We attract a lot of artists and a lot of designers, and so the work that we do, I feel, matters. Like I said, that commercial came out in 2016, early 2017, and midway through last year, I kind of just like that whole experience just kind of like popped in my head again, and the impression that it left on one of my employees, like that, like stuck out. And then I just started kind of like repeating that to myself: work that matters, work that matters. And just kind of had this like vision of us doing a video series where we're featuring our clients and the people that we work for and that we work with. Because how you said earlier, like we definitely have this vibe, we definitely, we like to be the life of the party. We want to bring the party. We want to, we're just having fun doing what we do.
Right.
But I feel like what defines industry as who we are today is like 50% us, 50% who we work for.
Yeah.
And so we've done a really good job of like kind of like telling our story and featuring our work and doing all that type of stuff. I felt like it was time to like bridge that gap and start to talk about the people we work with and why we work with them and why they choose to work with us and things like that. And so this is just like a project that we're able to produce in-house. So we're just like, yeah, let's just do it just to see what happens.
Totally.
So we have a big push behind it. We started an Instagram. We got, Work That Matters on Instagram. Starting a YouTube channel. We're starting to film and interview the first round of people. This is going to be like an ongoing project. Our first interview, who's going to be in the first round, was with James Victore. People that we work with, like Mondo, Empire, BMX, the National Poster Retrospectivus, like all, we're just
some mom and pop shops that a couple of people have heard of.
Yeah, exactly.
In Volcom.
No, I mean, like quite opposite. I mean, I know you're joking, but we want to let people know, like, we're printing for some really rad people and tell their story. And those people don't need their stories to be told necessarily. But we definitely want to be able to give them something that they can use, and then, something that really, I just really want to talk about the people that we work with.
One thing that I like about it, and I'm not saying that this is your intention, but, at the end of the day, someone reaches out to you, they want you to do work for them, you do the work for them. To go the extra step of saying, like, okay, we're past the transactional part of it, and now I'm going to invest in you. I'm going to like build this thing. I'm going to promote it. I'm going to talk about you. Like you're basically taking your effort in investing back into the person that, maybe in the typical scenario, they would just hand you their money, and it's like funneling your direction. You know what I'm saying? So I like the fact that I just think that's a cool thing. And I think that, yes, you're at the level you're at, but I think even for the people that are just freelancers, or they just have they work with one or two other people, I think there's a great lesson in that, which is to say that the relationship doesn't have to end at that transaction. Invest back in the people that are investing in you, and you're going to see a greater return from that. I mean, and that might be monetarily, and it might be through relationship, and it might be through any number of ways, but invest back in the people that are investing in you. I think that's awesome. Absolutely.
One thing that is also really rad about, about running industry, about the clients that we have, when it comes down to it, they're also our buddies. At crop year one, we do this series called There Will Be Bleed. And there's, it's like designer meets printer kind of situation. The first year was, Draplin and industry. And so what I kind of like, my point is that, Aaron was like, this community that we're in, this design community, it's like, we're lucky enough to be able to call on creative services with people that are our friends. He's like, I could call Tony and I can get a poster printed, but I can also have a catch-up conversation with my buddy.
Right.
He's like, I don't call my insurance agent and be like, hey, Bob, how are the kids? He's like, we're real lucky to be within this community that we're able to feed each other.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
so I want to take that because there's a thought that's just kind of been permeating in my head this whole time we've been chatting, and I think it's a good time to kind of segue that into our finals so that we can keep this bite size for everybody. So I'll take mine now, and then the other guys can fight for theirs. You're so chill, right? And you're so laid back, and you're such like you've mentioned so many times before, like the idea that when you're working with these people, yes, they're your clients, and yes, you are a service provider, but you're also friends, and you're also buddies, and you can kick it, and you can do all these things. You have 30 employees. How do you handle conflict resolution in a workplace with 30 employees, with 30 different mindsets, 30 different best quote-unquote ways to do things, and still maintain that level of chill?
That's my wife's department.
So deferment. Okay, cool. I got that.
We have an HR department that is my wife, and she has an HR assistant. We do have to do a little bit of mitigating, and we need to hold people accountable.
Yeah.
We have really, really high standards. This is something that I've been working on and I'm going to continue to work on, but it's just to deliver honest feedback, like just to have an uncomfortable conversation, like, hey, you're kind of sucking right now. It's super uncomfortable to have that conversation, but, I can't afford to not have that conversation.
Sure. Yeah.
We've had plenty of, bad apples, so to speak, that we had to, weed them out.
Release from the orchard.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, for the most part, we don't just hire like haphazardly.
Right.
Like, people that are here for a reason. But it is tough. It is tough.
Yeah.
It's something that, I don't like, I think that's just, I think it just comes with the territory.
Yeah.
I mean, it's business too. I mean, it totally makes sense. So,
Yeah.
so I will ask a less serious question. I am curious. So
I'm known as the most serious one on the show.
I could tell.
just really a killjoy whenever.
I really like to bring the party down.
Party pooper.
So the screen printing. Okay.
Yep, that's what he does.
You mentioned. I'm just making sure.
That is what you do, right? I mean, I know we're 40 minutes in, but just want to clarify.
No, earlier you mentioned doing a 21 color print with Morning Breath.
Morning Breath.
And I was just thinking about the monotony that must be. And I'm just curious, like if you're facing this like really gnarly job, that's like 300 with 30 colors or something like that. I don't even know if you would accept that job. But
oh yeah, we'll take it.
Nice.
How do you approach that? Like, what's the? Is it just like throw on some headphones and like get to it, or like what helps you like do the monotony of that.
It's just
piece.
one employee per color. That's easy.
I assign you magenta.
As the owner operator and having 30 employees, I'm only really behind for myself. I'm only really behind a squeegee when I'm producing artwork for myself.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. So, in all fairness, that I feel like that would be a better question for our master printer, Brian McClaskey.
Okay.
But, I am, and Brian is the, department manager for that. But I do oversee that department and help him with scheduling and help him with all of that. And we produced a little video on our Instagram, Brian talking about screen printing and what the repetitiveness of it. And he finds zen in the repetitiveness, and I think that for that particular project with Morning Breath, again, it's something that we want to do.
Yeah.
We have fun doing it. Mm-hmm. So it's not work. For the last 10 years, if I did take any kind of vacation, I worked.
Sure.
And that was because I enjoyed it. I was more stressed out on vacation than I was here at work.
Right.
And not that that's for everybody, but I think that just making work that matters and loving what we do is what gets us through when the day-to-day can be grueling. And sometimes, man, the 21 color, 100 poster job is much easier than the, 3 color, 50 piece job, just because that particular designer is super particular.
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Or whatever,
Yeah.
So sometimes the customer service is a little bit more grueling than the actual work.
Right.
Yeah, sure. That makes
Fair
sense.
So,
all right. So for my final, I'm going to ask a 2-parter. What's the coolest thing that you've seen you guys print? What's the coolest thing that you've been part of? And then what's a thing where it's reaching for the fences that you want to do that you haven't done yet?
the coolest thing, and I hate to continue just to repeat Morning Breath, but really, really getting to work with Morning Breath was a huge deal for me.
Mm-hmm.
I've been collecting their work. I've been a fan of their work, and just to be able to now be a homie, a contemporary, somebody that they call on for their services, means a lot to me.
Cool. Totally.
I find a lot of success and fulfillment in the relationships that this place has helped me build.
Yeah.
More so than the profit margins or the year-to-date sales.
Right.
However, working with artists of that caliber is what gets me super stoked, and I would kind of be those are all my favorites. But we've worked when we first kind of started out. During our downtime, we would screen print posters, and then we go out in the streets and we paste them up at night. Doing a bunch of street art type hooliganery, I guess.
Sure.
When we kind of first started, before Exit Through the Gift Shop came out, type, right in that area. But now being able to print for people that helped set the stage for that type of art to be out there, like WK Interact, Morning Breath, Fail, which is this art duo from Brooklyn, which hands down for me, after working with Fail, you could put a fork in me, I'm done.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Like that right there. When I get a call from Fail I lose my shit.
Yeah.
Just continuing to like knock the artists off that bucket list of people we want to work with, you know,
Sure.
like Mike Giant, Ben Frost, just a lot of those types of artists that helped pave the way for street art becoming mainstream.
Sure.
Printing and working with, and just even getting to like email exchange with these people that are like sincerely my heroes. And with that, like the hard part is trying not to like geek out or get too fanboy when I'm talking with them, you know?
Yeah.
That's I'm trying to be cool. Oh yeah, no, it's cool. Yeah, we got you. But like I hang up that phone and I'm just like waving my fists in the air like, yes, stoked.
Yeah.
So and I feel like continuing to do what we do, you know, the more people that we work with of that caliber, the more that they're talking about us. Another one I forgot that we got to work with that I always forget to mention is Jeff Soto. And then, you know, Jeff being the artist that he is, the poster designer that he is, I mean, somebody like that was definitely on the bucket list. Mm-hmm. And so with all these people that like just talking about us, it brings a lot of validity to the hard work that we've put in over the 10 years. I would say for me, beyond growing the shop to like a branding house, a content generator, you know, producing conferences, be like on top of all those things, continually work with artists that inspire me personally is like that definitely pushes me forward.
Absolutely.
That's awesome, dude.
Well, so we want to be able to let everybody know what's coming up with you, how they can follow you, how they can support what you're doing. So tell everybody where they can find you on the internet and all over the world.
IndustryPrintShop.com, on Instagram, Industry Print Shop. We do have a Work That Matters Instagram. Okay. We also have a Instagram for our publishing division, Industry Editions. We have online stores, industryprintshop.bigcartel.com, industryeditions.bigcartel.com, where we have some timed releases, super limited prints available. Personally, my Instagram's Anti by Design, where I feature some of my personal artworks and sometimes daily shenanigans with my kids.
It's great.
Thanks so much for taking a few minutes to chat with us. You have so much going on, and so taking time is awesome. Before you head out of here, can you help us pick tokens so that next week we'll know what we're talking about?
All day. Let's do it.
All right, well, that's it for the interview portion of the episode. Up next, we're going to draw some tokens. Every week we draw tokens to figure out exactly what we're going to be talking about the following week. The tokens give us our categories. We pick our topics based on those categories. That's how it works. Tony, why don't you give me a number between 1 and 3, and you'll be picking for Patrick.
2.
2, that means, Patrick, you have toys and games. Congratulations.
I'm on a roll.
You are. And pick a number between 1 or 2. I guess it's not between 1 or 2. Just pick 1 or 2. You'll pick for Luke.
1.
Art and design.
Finally, something different.
I have TV and film. So congratulations, you shook it up. Seriously, man, thank you so much for chatting and for being cool and chill. You're putting out some seriously cool stuff, and we look forward to seeing. We're going to be at all the things you mentioned in 2018.
Yes. Yeah.
So
we're going to follow you around everywhere.
Yeah.
We'll grab a drink together. I love my. I didn't mention it on the show, but I'm just going to show it. I guess it's still the show, so I can mention it. This little pin is one of my favorites. I have about 1,000 enamel pins, but this little screen print, like functioning,
such a cool
squeegee,
idea. It's like so smart.
It's such a good idea.
Was that your idea?
No, it wasn't my idea.
It's
So,
good.
Well, whose ever idea that was, they get a raise.
Yeah, but you
Yeah.
hired him,
Oh, yeah,
so
you-
that's
That's,
good.
That dude's killing it.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, but we'll be everywhere where you are. So thanks for chatting with us. But if you are watching this on YouTube, all of the stuff that we talked about is going to be below. The links and things you need to know are right below us. If you're listening to this on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, or Stitcher, iTunes? I didn't mention iTunes.
I think you
iTunes
did.
is another one that you could be
You've
listening
said
Apple
to.
one of those
Podcast.
words at least 4 times now.
Yeah.
So.
Who knows? Spotify's the new one. That's the
Yeah.
one to really that we're highlighting now. But if you're listening to this, go to mof1podcast.com where you can find show notes to all the stuff we just talked about and link to all of the great things the industry is doing and the events that they're going to be at and all of that jazz. And then you can support the show by sharing this video, liking this audio, sharing the photographs. Are we sending photographs to people? I don't know.
Write a letter.
Just all of the media that we are doing, share it, like it, tell your friends about it. That's one huge way you can help. You can also support the show on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/M1podcast. A couple bucks each month helps us a ton to continue to create new and better content and do some really fun and cool things. We have some great plans for 2018. You can be a huge part of that. Social media everywhere, just search M of One Podcast. But I think for now, we're going to get out of this one, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. I'm Andrew.
I'm Patrick.
I'm Luke.
And I'm Tony.
Peace out.
Bye.
Hold on to your butts.
Zip it up and zip it out.